Civil Discourse Now. Welcome back. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
We're here on October 27th, 2012. It's a beautiful, crisp, sunny afternoon in front of our live audience. And
I think you fell asleep.
No, they didn't. We were talking about the Electoral College and possible reforms to the Electoral College.
Do they have a football team, the Electoral College?
They're Division 4.
A Division 4.
Yeah, they don't. Then they only come out every 4 years.
All right.
So they're not very. Their one graduating class is always very, very disappointing in a lot of ways. We were talking about possible reforms of the Electoral College, and one is for a proportional vote.
We talked off the air. Colorado had a proposal going through a few years ago about making their electoral vote proportional. I'm not saying this right. Making their electoral vote reflect the percents of the popular vote in the state.
So if we got, so they have 10 electoral votes, and let's say
okay, but we'll say 10.
Okay, let's say somebody got 5 point. Let's say somebody got 52%.
Well, you're making the math hard, but if it's 52%, then I assume it would be split evenly 5-5. If it's 60%, then one gets 6, one gets 4.
Yeah, but see, you're making a big. Do you round up, or what do you do?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, because if you're going to do it proportionally, then that means, are we going to do it to the
I don't think they have. They
10?
get in. I don't think they do that. I don't know if you can get into tenths.
The Constitution doesn't say anything about it.
But these are human beings, though.
So
you're going to.
Well, the Constitution talked about 3/5 of a human being at one point.
Yeah.
So that's. But if you do
maybe you have small people and large people.
But if you have something that's proportional.
Okay, in Colorado's example, let's say they did do a proportional thing, and you're not going to get people to go to Colorado. The presidential candidates are not going to go to Colorado because at most they're going to be fighting over one delegate switch from one column to the other.
But you're also looking at a situation where the entire country would be that way.
Well, if the entire country were that way, then it would be a different story.
If everybody switched to proportional voting, then the candidates would be going every place presumably fairly equal.
Well, if you're going to go to proportional voting, you might as well get rid of the Electoral College completely and go to popular voting.
Yes, that's one way of bypassing the Electoral College. But then you wouldn't have. At least that would be more reflective of the popular vote generally. That would go against what the framers of the Constitution wanted.
Right. It would go against. Of course, the framers also thought that this was going to be a deliberative body. That they were going to sit around and debate who would be the best president. I don't think it's ever been that way.
I don't think it was for Burr and Jefferson. I think it was a matter of personal animosity that people had toward Jefferson, because it was Jefferson against Madison in a bloody, dirty, really filthy election where there are people, they didn't campaign. This was before candidates campaigned. So the presidential candidates for president of the United States didn't campaign. But all the people that were campaigning for them did everything they could to throw out as many lies and as much filth as they could about Jefferson as possible.
And that brings to one of the criticisms I have of the criticisms of every election. It's like, oh, this is the worst, the dirtiest election ever. No, it's not. We've had many, many dirty political elections.
There's quite a few.
But one of the things about the popular vote that I bring up that no one ever pays attention to, probably because maybe it's not a good thought. But let's say that you have a nationwide election, popular vote, and it's like 1,000 votes between the candidates. You have recounts in every jurisdiction of the country. It would be a mess in terms of recount. One thing about the Electoral College, if you do have a recount, it's focused in on only a few of the states, which I think is good.
That's true, but
we saw what the chaos that happened when you tried to recount.
But all that would have had to have happened in 2000 is if one member of the United States Senate had objected to the Electoral College vote, and none, the way in which procedures had worked, if one member of the Senate had objected to the method in which the votes had been counted, it would have.
Well, that would be the okay. they can only put it on hold. One person can only put it on hold. I don't believe that one person could stop the.
Well, I guess
result of the presidential
my
election.
point was the United States Senate,
Yeah.
the members of the Senate at that point were gutless, or at least spineless.
Yeah.
They lacked some portion of the anatomy. Be that as it may. I think you're right. A recount would pose a lot more chaos. I think also, though, when you look at the downside of the Electoral College right now, you have, at one point I read it was 12 counties in the United States. NBC's people said that it looked like 12 counties were going to control the outcome of this election.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it,
that's true.
that can be very true. Philadelphia is a very populous county in Pennsylvania, and so there's a lot of votes there. So if you swing that county and the state's close, presumably you get the state. Ohio, Cuyahoga County, I think, is where Cleveland is located. You get that county, presumably that swings the vote.
Well, that would be go Democrat, but the question is how much.
Yeah, but Florida, you've got Dade County. Of course, Florida is so populous anymore. 2 or 3 counties down there are probably in the equation.
Hey, you didn't talk about Florida's way or swing states or anything.
I mentioned. I said Romney had it by 1.8 right now,
Yeah.
and that's still tight.
Yeah, it's tight.
That's tight. So that could go either way. And you know, if he does some Romneyisms in the next, and yeah, President Obama hasn't been as prone to gaffes in this campaign or the last campaign.
Well, for the last campaign, he did mention 57 states. That was a problem.
That was, but that wasn't. It wasn't because he lacked understanding of these.
I don't know.
But
I came up with 57 states.
Whereas,
maybe you talk about the other territories that have voting delegations.
Could be Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands.
There might be 7 of those. Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico is a commonwealth, but when you look at the campaigns, I don't see President Obama committing any kind of gaffes, not like Romney has on a couple of instances.
I don't think it were large gaps. Well, he did have the 49.
47%. 47%.
That's pretty much faded, though. It's not.
That's an interesting point because
things fade over time.
Well,
Murdoch didn't have enough time to fade.
There's kind of a fade factor. It's like two weeks is kind of a short period of time.
Very short fade time.
And people remember those things.
Right.
So going to Florida, that's close. 1.8% is easily made up, and you don't know what's being done in terms of the early voting down there. If they have early voting, I'm not sure. So we have tight races.
Oh, this is the tightest presidential election I could think of on paper.
Let's see. Well, and just as
the Gore-Bush race in 2000, I don't think it was nearly on paper before the election was as tight as this one is.
And you were looking at Gore winning that?
No, I was looking at Bush winning.
Oh.
Bush had the lead, I believe, in the polls.
Okay.
I was shocked at how close it was.
But I remember in 1980, people were.
Well, that's in 2000.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 1980, people thought it was going to be extremely close between Reagan and Carter. I mean, and we're talking last minute. It's going to be really tight. And I remember getting home to the apartment, and my roommate was sitting in a chair in the living room. And he was crying. And he said, "Reagan's won."
Yeah,
and he said, "It's not even close. You were right to vote for Anderson, because I voted for Ed Clark. I voted for the Libertarian that year."
Huh.
And
that was an amazing election, because going in, there was only a couple points separating the candidates, but all the Democrats stayed home, all the Republicans went to the polls.
And my theory that year was Indiana was going to go Republican anyway. It didn't matter. So I was just going to go ahead and vote for Libertarian and make a statement of philosophy. And at that point, I didn't know I was voting for one of the Koch brothers for vice president. I didn't know who the Koch brothers were. But that was a close election until the election. The election itself was kind of a blowout.
Yeah, it was a blowout. So
that was,
and that's going to be what's the campaign's going to concentrate on this next week, is getting their people to the polls, because that is key. The thing is, I don't think the Romney people are as enthused about Republicans are as enthused about Romney as they were about Reagan in 1980.
I think that's an interesting slip of the tongue when you said the Romney people aren't, I mean, the Republicans aren't. I don't think that there are really any Romney people. I don't see any people as being there and devoted to Romney's philosophy of ad hoc.
But then on the other side, Obama's people aren't very enthused either.
No, there are a lot of them are enthused. You're just not seeing them on the same level as it was in 2008.
Well, definitely, that's definitely true. But right now the energy level's a little, the edge I think goes to Romney.
Well, and I think a couple
but
of
there's
things.
not really much energy out there at all.
Well, and I think a couple of things that have affected that in terms of if any factor has gone towards making people more enthused, I think one of the factors has been the access to the ballot cases in Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, where people were told you're going to have to go through all these different things to be able to cast a vote, and then those restrictions are taken away. I would say that would have a tendency.
Did the camera pick up me rolling my eyes?
I would have a tendency to think that people who weren't going to be able to vote.
I found it ironic yesterday, this week, going into federal court, where many of these cases are argued, that you had to show your photo ID to get in the building.
Not photo ID.
Yes, you did.
No, they asked for photo ID, but you don't know what they would have asked for if you'd said, I do not have a photo ID.
They made someone go to their car to get one.
Because they had a photo ID in their car.
Oh, so you're saying they would be allowed in the building without a photo ID?
You can get on an aircraft without having a photo ID.
Okay, all right.
There are alternatives to that. You'll take your photo ID to the airport because it's a real pain in the
I'm sure it is.
tush to have to deal with it otherwise.
So, anyway, I just thought that was ironic.
I thought that, I think that there are going to be a lot of people, if anything, who will be upset about it.
And I looked at the turnout numbers in Indiana. They went up after we adopted the photo ID requirement. They didn't go down. Everyone's got a photo ID, or they can get a photo ID. This is such a non-issue.
Well, it's a non-issue because I'm not a Democrat.
You Democrat-leaning people are just trying to make up for your history of what you did in the South.
That's not.
That's what it is.
It's not accurate, but I think that could be one factor, and I think that also the second and third debates, I don't know what kind of an effect it's going to have on people.
People stopped watching after the first debate.
Well, and
the second debate, even though people said Obama won, they also asked the question, did it change your mind? And that was split evenly, so people don't vote on foreign policy.
After having debated for 4 years in high school and 4 years in college, I can tell you that at the end of every year, we debated generally the same topic all year. We were burned out.
Yeah.
It was like we didn't want to have any more debates. The last tournament of the year, Nationals, we were happy when that last round was over. And I'm glad that the presidential debates are over.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think all the debates are over now.
I think so, and I think that Murdoch wishes that they had one less.
Yeah.
We've discussed the Electoral College here today. Next week, Civil Discourse Now will be shooting live, discussing the prognostications of our guests and ourselves for the election on Tuesday, November 6th, is it?
It is November 6th. No, November 7th for you, Mark. And your lovely wife.
But come in, tune in next week. This is Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
Thank you very much. See you next week. As always,